Okay, I'm gonna set this light up as I'm trying to fix the shot. How do I do this? Brothel in 1800s. Whoa, there's enter. What the fuck? Let's go. You know, making a film always felt so insanely overwhelming to me. I would see these behind the scenes footages of really cool films that I always grew up watching, and I would see people running helter-skelter, all chaos. Someone's yelling cut, someone's yelling speed, someone's yelling reset. I would keep thinking how exhilarating this process would be, and I kept wondering what is the right time, right place, and the best way to learn this form of art. And I always kept getting more and more curious. I realized how much I love films, how much I would want to make films at some point in life, all through my childhood. And no matter how overwhelming it was, I could fortunately make my first independent feature film at 25 called Freddie's Piano. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how that happened. Now, before I start talking about the film, I want to share this memory that stayed with me forever. I was 13 years old and I really wanted to play the piano. And I remember telling my mom if she could buy me a grand piano. And I was jumping on from liking one thing to the other and then the other. So she said, "Pianos are expensive, Aakash." So I said, "Oh, okay, so no piano?" She said, no, let me figure something out." She took some time, but after a while, she bought me a lovely keyboard, a digital keyboard, so to say. Fairly nice, expensive, wonderful one. And she said, "How about this? You play on this now." I thought it was incredible, and I started playing the keyboard then, but I never got the piano. But then years later, she told me about how hard it was to even buy that digital, decently expensive keyboard. Very nice keyboard. And it was her way to say, "I still want you to play." Years later, she told me how hard it was to even figure that digital keyboard out, because she had to figure out where she would get the money from. She took a couple of other gigs and she moved funds from one to the other, but somehow my mom made sure that I get a version of what I wanted, because she wanted to make sure that her son continues to play. And that story always stayed with me. As I grew up, I jumped hard into theatre. I was all through my school and college acting in every other play possible. I spent a year learning theatre making, acting and performing arts, and understand directing for stage in Bombay. And for 10 years, I just did theatre. It was incredible. I ran my own theatre company. I must have, through my course of theatre making and performing arts where I studied, I must have read hundreds of plays. And that's where it struck me hard on how much acting innately depends on good writing and directing. The pauses, understanding the intent, the subtext, the motivation, the blocking, everything comes from what's on the page. It's written well, a good actor can come in and make it fly. If it's not, the best actor could come in and do nothing, because innately it's all in that story. What is the story that you want to tell? Theatre taught me everything. How do you build a moment? How do you hold the silence? How do you find truth in the characters you try and play? The stories that you want to tell are directly proportional to your understanding of human emotions. How much life have you lived? What is really your exposure to every emotion that you could tap into that will make you say, "I have a story to tell"? And somehow it made me obsessed with simple emotions human beings go through. These simple moments that say everything without saying much. Behind all of this, while I was making my work happen on stage, I kept thinking of the film I want to make. And every time I would think of what is the film that I really want to make. If there's any story that I really have to tell, it was a story of how my mom pushed all she can to buy me a keyboard. So I started saving up, because I kept going back to the fact that as a child, I always wanted to make my own film. I always wanted to act and direct and make my own film. And Somehow, with whatever little I could save, through odd jobs, different shows, every penny that I made in different places, I kept investing in different assets. I always had a home in Bombay. Huge privilege. Never had to pay rent for a long, long time. And somehow, at a particular point when I was 24 years old, I decided that I'm going to take whatever little I have and move. Go to another city, study filmmaking, and come back and make a film. Just an abrupt but a very, very stern, simple thought. Now, the city I always wanted to go to and study films was New York. It seemed like the city I looked up to, the chaos I would want to be in. There were multiple workshops parallelly happening at all points that I could attend. Nothing fancy, but just a place where I could go explore this idea of learning filmmaking. I attended multiple filmmaking workshops. One of them was this workshop in New York Film Academy, which was a filmmaking workshop. What I enjoyed was that there was a common language and common love for interesting films. And in this mix, I met an interesting person. Someone in his mid-50s, spent all his life doing things that he always loved doing, but he always wanted to make films. And now at this point in life, he said, I'm going to take that punt, take that chance and learn filmmaking. I remember the first class when he spoke about one of his favorite films. I think it was Pather Panchali. It was one of the. It was obvious Ray film that every film nerd loves. And I remember taking my backpack and sitting next to him and saying, "Dude, I'm just gonna sit next to you throughout because." There's some sense of like similar stories that we both love. All through the weeks and months of when we were in that particular course, I remember being the first one to reach and the last one to leave, and so was he. In this particular time of us trying to understand filmmaking, I would go back home in New York where I stayed and I would write the film I want to make. And somehow I kept going back to that memory. The memory I spoke to you guys about. Memory of my mom trying to buy me a piano. And as the course was about to end, as I was thinking I should move back to India, I remember over a beer talking to him and saying, I think I'm going to go back. It's time. I've written a small screenplay. I'll try and pitch it around. Take up another job, save up, do what I can. But I'm moving back to Bombay. And he said, what script are you writing? And I spoke about this idea. This idea of just two brothers who recently lose their parents. The younger one plays piano really well. And the elder one sees that as soon as the parents pass away, he stops playing. And he doesn't get it. He goes, why would you stop playing? He's grieving. He doesn't feel like playing, the younger kid. But he says, I just don't feel like it. I don't want to play anymore. And the elder brother thinks that it's because of the fact that he doesn't have enough resources, a piano at hand, that he stops playing. He says, I will buy you a piano for Christmas, no matter what. And he can't even afford his bus fees and school fees and everyday life. And the whole film is about what the elder brother does to buy the younger one a grand piano for Christmas. This was the seed thought of the film. And I remember saying the exact same things over a drink to my friend. And he said, how much does this cost? How much would it cost to make this? And I said, I don't know, a lot of money. And he said, what's a lot of money? I said, bro, and I randomly uttered a figure. Now he said, if we could make it in that money, let's do it together. Somehow let's figure a way to do this. And that's how I found the first producer who came in on board to make a film I wanted to make. No pitch decks, no conversations on the ROIs, no great calls on who's the star in it. It was a pact of trust and the idea of let's just do this together, we got this. And that's how the journey of me making Freddie's piano started. A person instilling his trust and saying, let's make this film. And that is how we started. That's how we started making our movie. We didn't really have a big crew, no fancy equipment, no really the best talent possible to come in and help us make this film. But we definitely had a crew that cared a little too much. I think that made all the difference. We wrote scenes the last minute. Sometimes the rooms we were shooting were too small. Sometimes the heat was too much. Sometimes we had unplanned rains. Sometimes we just were clueless at points on set on how do we move forward. But in between all of this, a lot of sincerity appeared that really kept everyone going. As I kept making this film, I realized that my film Freddie's Piano is no longer about piano anymore. It was about responsibilities coming on your shoulders too soon. It was about giving the person something that they really want. Even if you can't give them what they really want, a version of what they want. A film went to multiple film festivals across the world. It was COVID at that time, so a lot of festivals basically happened online and not offline. I couldn't personally go to most of these places. It won wonderful awards, and many people praised on how they could connect to the film and how the film lingered and how the colors worked and how the story was beautiful. If you really want to make a film, maybe the first thing to ask really is, do you really have a story to tell? Everything else that feels overwhelming can be figured out if you really believe in that story of yours. And that is how I made my first independently produced feature film at 25. And now we're trying something crazy. The film is out to watch for free on this channel, on YouTube. I would love for you to watch it, share your thoughts on what you thought of the film. And with that film, I have many other shorts that I've made which are also available for free on this channel. I plan to share as much as I can on my journey on making films on this very channel. So if this is something that excites you, if you connect to something like this, I would love for you to subscribe my channel. And if you watched my video for so long, really thank you. I hope I see you in the next video.